Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. If I look paler than usual, I'm a little worn out. I was out in the cold today at the Ontario Autism Coalition rally, hashtag needs-based therapy now, down at Queen's Park. My husband was speaking down there, and I wanted to go to show support. If you're interested in what the issues are going on with autism in autism education funding in Ontario, leave a comment. I may cover it on Feedback Friday. That's not the topic today, but if I seem a little, that's why. I didn't expect it to be so cold. It wasn't like all over body cold. It was mostly my feet and then like my fingertips. Even though I was wearing gloves, my fingertips got cold, and then I didn't notice how cold my feet were until I started to walk like after we were done. But that's not the topic today. The topic today is guaranteed to get demonetized. So if you're interested in this sort of perspective, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K. $1, $2, $3, $5 a month. It really helps because YouTube always demonetizes this stuff. But I think it's very important because, well, people know I am a feminist. I struggle increasingly with that label because of the way the feminist movement, the organized feminist movement is going, but I'm not willing to drop the tag yet because I won't abandon it to just the crazies, because I think this stuff does need to be talked about. But while I absolutely accept the statistics on the comparative prevalence of, as they say, gender-based violence, but I prefer intimate partner violence because that encompasses everything, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation. When a man hits a woman, or even, a man hits a partner of any gender, or a woman hits a partner of any gender who is smaller and less strong than them, they cause more physical damage than, if somebody's not as big and strong. But I continue to believe, unfortunately, I have seen way too much abuse. I have known way too many friends who have been abused. I suffered abuse in the workplace, including physical abuse in the workplace. And it was a union shop, and they were union, and I was a producer. So, of course, they were protected. For people who don't know, producers are not union in the setup, in the way Canadian television stations work. So this particular union protected a violent person. There was nothing I could do about it. So obviously this is an issue. And I don't think it had anything to do with my gender in this case. I think the guy would have done it to another guy under the circumstances. But, I know firsthand how abusers use any protection they can get from the system, any power they get from the system to perpetuate their abuse. And it doesn't matter if they're male, female, or anything else in between or beyond. The dynamics are the same, even though the details may look different. And one thing we've known for a really long time is that shaming or trying to publicly humiliate a person who reports abuse, trying to discredit them or make them seem like the problem, like they're crazy or out of control and can't be believed, that's part of the abuse cycle. And unfortunately, a lot of systems and stereotypes enable abuse in that regard. And the most commonly thought of one is when a woman's past sexual history is used against her when she tries to report sexual assault. Now, that you're not allowed to do that in Canada anymore. I don't know what the laws are like other places, but something called rape shield laws were enacted in the 1990s. Now, when it comes to, I think it was the 1990s, might have been the early 2000s, not sure, but they were enacted. The problem with emotional and psychological and mental abuse is that none of these things are illegal most of the time. There has to be a sort of physical, at least physical intimidation component to the complaint for it to rise to the level of criminality. So a lot of people have to suffer through really profound emotional abuse, destruction of their careers, because an abusive person is using the power granted to them by the system and the assumptions people make about certain situations to continue the abuse against someone and have a person not be taken seriously when they report this abuse. And this huge preamble is a lead up to what I'm going to show you, the latest in the very sordid Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation. And normally I wouldn't just, I want to be clear, I'm not doing this because, hey, the last videos did really well traffic wise. Let's get more eyeballs. No, it's not about that. I want to show how these abuse paradigms work, because I said before that I don't think what Amber Heard is doing is any different than Harvey Weinstein saying, if you say what happened, I will ruin you. And I said that, and now Amber Heard is trying to tie Johnny Depp to Harvey Weinstein. I'm not kidding, which is so sleazy and just wrong, and to me indicates, you don't see him bringing up her previous arrest for domestic abuse, because that has nothing to do with the facts of their relationship. It's a defamation case. It's about a particular event. Did she defame him? And, did she do something that slandered his reputation that wasn't true and was malicious? But she's trying to go back to stuff that happened 6 or 7 years before they even met, as if that's relevant. Don't believe me? Here we go. Let's get this to look not ugly. Okay, here we go. Johnny Depp seeks to quash Amber Heard's subpoena on Weinstein Company. And there's a picture of Johnny Depp with Harvey Weinstein. Now, there's a million celebrities, well, thousands anyway, with pictures similar to this. You'll notice it's Spike TV's Don Rickles One Night Only. And it's one of those things, I'm sure there are pictures of me out there with scumbags, right? Because when you're at an event like this and you happen to be in proximity to someone, they're like, hey, let's take a picture. And you don't even think. It's like, you cannot stand the person. It's just, hey. And Johnny Depp's body language doesn't seem that thrilled. Here, he's just kind of like, yeah, whatever, go to my happy place. I mean, he doesn't seem terribly perturbed, but, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures out here. Pretty much every celebrity who has ever taken a photo with Harvey Weinstein has been shamed for it. Now, for people who don't know, Harvey Weinstein was an incredibly powerful movie producer. That's why what he did has been so angering. He produced multiple movies that Johnny Depp was in immediately following a pretty serious career slump for Johnny Depp. In the early 2000s, Johnny Depp has had a career full of ups and downs. He was kind of blacklisted after he left 21 Jump Street, but then Tim Burton kind of brought his career back, and then he had a series of kind of controversial movies that didn't do so well, and so there was another slump, and he had this period where his films were getting booed at Cannes and all this stuff. He always seems to kind of bounce back, but it was during one of these slumps in the early 2000s that he started making films like Finding Neverland and Chocolat Chocolat, but that's not how Americans say it, for Miramax, which was Harvey Weinstein's company at that time. And then he made at least one movie for the Weinstein Company called The Libertine. And it's that movie, The Libertine, that is the center of this subpoena that Depp's legal team is trying to quash, because reading this, I personally think this is just intended to embarrass him. They want to get personal correspondence with somebody who a jury is currently deliberating his fate. God, they might be back before this video even goes live tomorrow. But I mean, Harvey Weinstein is basically the face of Rapey McRaperson right now. Oh, video demonetized. But Harvey Weinstein equals scumbag. You know, like somebody finally topped Mel Gibson and Bill Cosby in terms of scumbaggery. And her team is trying to tie Johnny Depp to Harvey Weinstein as if this has anything to do with a complaint that happened over a decade later regarding a relationship that started in 2011 when they want documents in a movie from 2004. Apparently, Amber Heard is a time traveler, or Johnny Depp is. Otherwise, this doesn't make any sense. Bracket, this doesn't make any sense. It's just an attempt to publicly shame him. Okay? Johnny Depp filed a petition late Friday to quash a subpoena filed by his ex-wife Amber Heard. I hate these friggin' drop downs, which seeks to get the Weinstein Company to turn over details on actors' dealings with Harvey Weinstein. Heard's subpoena aims to seek discovery relating to Depp's ongoing $50 million defamation lawsuit against her. Depp's Manhattan Supreme Court petition says his subpoena is overbroad and seeks the production of documents that are not properly subject to discovery. If this doesn't get quashed, I would be very surprised, okay? The subpoena requests a number of documents, including all communications between Mr. Depp and Harvey Weinstein. I don't know what Harvey Weinstein has to do with Johnny Depp's marriage from, like, a decade later, but let's read on. It also seeks documents concerning any act of violence committed by Mr. Depp during the production or promotion of The Libertine, a 2004 Weinstein Company-produced flick starring Johnny Depp. Depp filed the defamation suit after Heard, his wife, for just over a year until they separated in May 2016, penned a Washington Post op-ed about her experience as a victim of domestic violence. While Depp was not named in the piece, he insisted it was strongly inferred that he was the perpetrator. Heard responded by detailing the horrific abuse he allegedly suffered at his hands. We know what's come out subsequently. But any correspondence that Johnny Depp had with Harvey Weinstein in 2004 is not relevant to a relationship that started in 2011. I cannot say this enough. This has no logic. This has no reason. This is just an attempt to gaslight Johnny Depp. This is how gaslighting works. Oh no, okay, I was caught on tape saying I hit him, but look, he's worse than me. So everything he says, you know, he's lying, you know, look, he did this bad thing. Well, she doesn't need she doesn't need documents to show that Johnny Depp has had a somewhat violent past, mostly not even involving women. It's public knowledge. It's public knowledge that he assaulted a hotel security guard in Canada when he was drunk in 1989. Charges were dropped. In 1994, he was arrested again on charges of criminal mischief when this was legend, like this was everywhere when him and Kate Moss trashed a hotel room because they were fighting. Interestingly, Kate Moss has never said he was violent. But he was also arrested for threatening a paparazzi in London. I think we sort of understand that that's kind of a different thing. And that, I believe, was when he was with his wife and kids. And Vanessa Paradis, his ex-wife, mother of his kids, has said he never abused her. I believe Winona Ryder has also said he never abused her. But, he does have some very public bouts of violence. And that's public knowledge. You don't have to subpoena private conversations with a disgraced movie executive and probable rapist to prove that Johnny's been a bad boy in the past. Now, Johnny Depp has also been very open about his struggles with addiction. And, to hear him tell it, he kind of faced those demons around 2008. So, bad behavior 2004, gets help 2008, relationship starts 2011. She admits to hitting him but didn't punch him. She wasn't sure what she did subsequent to that. But his behavior in 2003 for a movie that came out in 2004 or perhaps earlier is relevant. I don't think so. This is taking stuff that she knew because they were in an intimate relationship and trying to smear him. And I certainly hope the judge doesn't let it through. I mean, let's face it, to an extent, the damage in the court of public opinion has been done. And I think the only saving grace here is that so many celebrities have been linked to Harvey Weinstein that it's a very large club. And I think, but this again, this is another point, in the abuser column for Amber Heard. The whole reason that what Harvey Weinstein did was so egregious is that he didn't just intimidate women into staying silent. He intimidated most men into staying silent because the men that did speak up, the men that did go against them, he did actively try to ruin them. Rose McGowan, Robert Rodriguez put Rose McGowan in, Planet Terror? After Weinstein was like, don't, because Rose McGowan was accusing him of dirty shit. And he did it anyway. And they tried to bury him. I remember at the time, because I thought Planet Terror greater than Grindhouse. But Weinstein just led this publicity thing that Grindhouse was like the greatest thing ever. And massive portions of it were ripped off whole cloth from Hong Kong martial arts films. I believe it was a movie called Three Sisters that was ripped off at the end. Like, it's exact copy. A lot of Tarantino stuff is ripped off from martial arts films. But Weinstein talked this up like some genius film, and Planet Terror was garbage. And I remember they were even talking about separating the two films so that Grindhouse could go on and receive all these accolades and Planet Terror would be kind of forgotten. And of course, Quentin Tarantino said and did nothing, which he says he now regrets. But this is how Hollywood works. I've seen this again and again and again and again. People don't stick up for what is right because they want to work. And a lot of these people are so beaten down. I mean, I just watched that movie, The Report on Amazon Prime, and they talk about conditioned dependence and conditioned helplessness. There's a ton of that in Hollywood. People think that if they stand up for what they believe in, their careers will be ruined. And Amber Heard knows this. Like, Amber Heard knows how the business works. And the fact that she would use an association that Johnny Depp had for totally business reasons. I cannot see a guy like Johnny Depp stomaching a guy like Harvey Weinstein. He probably felt physically ill in his presence. I mean, this is a guy who was friends with Hunter S. Thompson, who, love him or hate him, the man was walking authenticity in terms of gonzo journalism. And so I can't see somebody being fast friends with a guy like that and then being buddy-buddy with Harvey Weinstein. He played along to get work because unfortunately a lot of great movies are produced by awful, horrible scumbags in Hollywood. And it would be great if we could get rid of that. But as of, the early 2000s, that was in full swing. So she knows this, and she knows that this is dirty and this is prejudicial and that this has nothing to do with what went on in their relationship. And to me, the fact that they're going this low makes her look guilty as anything, but that's not how abuse works, right? Abuse, I find a lot of ways, abusers justify their own behavior by saying the victim was wrong too. I've seen this over and over and over again. Like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that, but, right? But you made me mad, or I was so hurt, or I had an experience this past summer where someone screamed at me and defamed me in front of not only a group of 20 people on Facebook Messenger, but also in public at a house party, and got out of it by claiming, oh, she felt very bad, and to the people we were volunteering, and she apologized. You know what she apologized for? She apologized for being so hurt, and then went on at length about how I hurt her so badly, and then something about a guy ghosting on her, and this was her idea of an apology. It's abusive behavior. It's completely abusive behavior, but she got away with it because the words "I'm sorry" preceded you hurt me. So it was totally victim status. But you know what I find, especially with women, they get away with it because some guys want to be white knights and they don't have proper respect for women as equals. And so female abusers get away with this crap. More on this in an upcoming podcast. It's finally scheduled. Oh my God. People are getting sick and hurt and all this stuff. But female abusers use the fact that society still does not treat women as fully accountable, fully formed human beings as a shield while they go and abuse people all over the place. And it's not just they abuse men. They abuse everyone in their life. And it becomes so normalized that then it's, oh, that's just them. They're troubled. They get this identity as a victim, and the harm they cause gets more and more and more and more. But all they have to do is start whimpering and start using I feel statements, and they get away with it. It doesn't matter what you are feeling when you knowingly harm another human being. Feelings are valid. Being vindictive because you have those feelings is not. And the problem right now is that Amber Heard's abuse is being enabled by her legal team. And this lawyer of hers that apparently is some big women's rights advocate, I don't know how her reputation is going to come out of this unscathed, because this is absurd. This is absolutely absurd. This, to me, is no different than a woman being discouraged from testifying at a sexual assault trial because, oh, her past sexual history is going to come up and no one will believe you. They're using unrelated dark moments. Yes, violent moments. In Johnny Depp's past, well, he was, consumed by drugs and alcohol demons against him, when they have nothing to do with the particular facts of this particular marriage. And I'm not saying that it's okay he beat up a security guard in Canada. We were all like, oh my God, at the time. I remember that story. And we were like, oh, Johnny Depp, bad person. And then when him and Kate Moss trashed that hotel room, it was reported he did it, but, you know, that was sort of, it's weird. That was sort of the era of celebrities trashing hotel rooms. And this sounds bizarre now, right? This is how much social standards have changed. Like, celebrities were trashing hotel rooms left and right at that point. Trashing a hotel room is not the same as throwing something at a person. Destruction of property is not the same as committing violence against another person. And there's an example of when Johnny Depp was so angry or messed up that he trashed $10,000 worth of damage in a hotel room, but never hit his girlfriend, who happened to be Kate Moss, who happened to be 20 years old at the time. The whole thing was bad news. It seems like Johnny Depp has a bit of a thing for somewhat toxic relationships. But then he has some really decent ones too, right? Like he had a long-time relationship with Vanessa Paradis, and they seem to have a very civil relationship, and they co-parent their kids, and everything's good there. And that should matter too. And this defamation case is looking more and more like a divorce proceeding. And the judge can't let that happen. Because if the judge lets this happen, if a judge allows evidence from long before they even knew each other, that's not right. That is, sure, the judge may be, if it's a judge trial, if it's not a jury trial, and they're like, you can enter it, but I'm probably going to ignore it. The problem is all that information enters into the public record, which can then be disseminated in the public record, and it furthers the abuse in trashing Johnny Depp's reputation, and that, for an actor, affects your ability to make a living. And that's not right. The judge shouldn't let it through, because this is just further perpetuating the, at this point, pretty clear pattern of abuse with Amber Heard as a psychological abuser against this guy. And we got to have conversations about this stuff, because this is just, again, this stuff really bothers me, because abuse against anyone is wrong. And this still ties into the fact that women are not seen as fully formed, fully accountable human beings. And while it hurts men who get into toxic relationships with these horrible women who use that to their advantage, it ultimately not only harms those men, but it harms all women who want to step into positions of authority. Because if you're not accountable, if you're not fully accountable for what you do, how can you possibly be a leader? How can you possibly be a boss? You're not even an adult in the eyes of the world. It's a serious problem. And that's why people like this, that's why I feel so strongly about this stuff. Now, I feel very strongly about people like Harvey Weinstein too, you may notice. But again, that got gendered, right? Like the whole Me Too thing got gendered. Poor Anthony Rapp and Terry Crews, right? They came forward too, and it became this women's thing. Why? Because it's an easy narrative. Because if it's just men bad, women victims, we don't have to change our thinking about anything. If it's people of all genders victims, people of all genders bad, people of all genders perpetrators, well, then we have to start having a very serious conversation about the nature of power and the nature of social power and how evil people wield that power. And there's a lot of careers, there's a lot of academic careers that would hang in the balance if that conversation really started happening. And that's why I get into so much trouble, and that's why I constantly have people hating my guts and slandering me online. But I'll leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Again, it's going to get demonetized because I said things like rape and sexual assault. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. I truly believe this is important stuff. So your support would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching.